This is the CSRP P50 GitHub repository. It's basically a R package. We have the usual folders, R, which is the source code, tests, Shiny server, inst for the data. So for now, it's just Shiny app that expands upon another R package. So there's not much source code. We can have a look into, this is the code of the Shiny app. So we have two data sets for now, CHA and use. So what I've done is that the functions that are called in the Shiny app are tested here in two test files. I have two test files for each of the dataset I want to test. So here is basically the code I'm calling in the Shiny. And we have expect assertions. One of the first thing I was thinking is that Enshi could add his dictionary code into this. Source codes here in our folder, a few tests in the test.dat folder. After that, you can add a rule in the makefile. So these are all standard R package calls, but starting from here, so here we have the vignette, build KG, intermediary script that I call on Clara's data to prepare the data for the Shiny app. So the idea is that you first run the build KG rule, and then you can deploy your Shiny app. The second important is data pool. So because we don't keep the data in the GitHub repository, we keep it on O2. And so we want to have an easy way to pull all the data. And so here it's with my username, but you can replace with yours, and maybe we can see with Vidul how to make a script to query the username. So the data is located here. And basically what happens is if you want to have it on your local computer, you git clone the repository, you pull the data, and normally after you're all set, you can try to do build KG and deploy the Shiny app. And to deploy the Shiny app, it will be in the Docker Compose. So we tested already with Clara, and on Mac, it probably doesn't work, but on Windows, it should work. We need to test. So the makefile is called from within the Docker image, and the Docker Compose enables to create the Docker image and call the makefile. For example, I also have a rule build KG, which defines the Docker image, mounts the volume, and calls the makefile rule that I showed previously. And we also have the Shiny rule, and so we would do Docker Compose up build KG. Once it's done, Docker Compose up Shiny, and it's deployed on port 9084. So the idea is that Enshi would add one rule in makefile, one rule in Docker Compose. To do Docker Compose up build dictionary, it will call his source code and produce a CHA dictionary v02. Once we have that, Charles can integrate his code since it builds upon v02. We can see how we organize in the future, but for now, this should work well. And so maybe Clara, you can do similar scripts as this one I prepared. So this was one of the first one I did on your data. So it basically took your embedding R data, I convert it to RDS, I do some row names, formatting. One of the main things is building the dictionary, searching in intermediate code, group code, etc. So in the scripts folder, so in scripts, it's kind of secondary code. In the R folder, it's important that all the code works well, because otherwise it can break the whole package. But if you have just intermediary stuff you want to keep, but that is not completely ready to be packaged, you can put it in scripts. And so, for example, here I put the Sass script. So this is not run by R, obviously. but it's good to still have a place where we can save it for future reference. So in the script folder, you can put basically what you want. And in the R folder, it's important that it's code that is also tested in the test folder. If you need to import other packages, you need to add them here. And you'll also add them in this file. Here you define the functions you call in your package. So this is like the overall structure. Let's have a look at the README. So I explained the setup, git clone, pull the data, replace with your user. The last thing I want to talk about, the test, check, and documentation rules. If we call docker compose package test, it will run all the tests in the test.dat folder. So if you're on O2 and you have already all your packages installed, you can just call the makefile rule with make devtool test. These tests, they run fast, but they don't completely install the package. So you might have issues due to package dependencies. So to check for that, it's important to also run check. So the idea is that you can use test as a local development to guide you, but before you push, it's important that you run the check rule, because this guarantees that when we will pull your update, it won't have any problem. In the makefile, it's just make. So test and check before pushing to the repo. If you import new functions, you will probably need to rebuild the documentation. So this is done with the build doc command. In the makefile, it's roxygenize. And the two last things in here is, so for the vignette, so there's a rule, make vignette. We can add other files in the vignette folder. We just need to add them in the makefile. So here it calls render the name of the file you want to render. So if you add a file in the vignette folder, you have to add it here. And lastly, Shiny app. Build KG first, and then you can deploy the Shiny app. So for Python code, what we will do for now is you can add the scripts in inst script here, and I will work with you to call it from R.